Welcome to Los Championship Rounds. I am your host, Juan Ramirez. This is episode 11, and we have a special guest today, a man that's been in the cut game ever since I can remember. I mean, we'll get a little bit more into when he started, but I know I remember seeing my guest say, which is Cutman Al Gamez. Al, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor.
Oh no, thank you for joining us. And I know I've been wanting to, have you on the podcast because number one, I'm a huge fan of your work. We're colleagues, but when you get out there and we've worked a lot, many, I think we've worked a few or many shows together, and
A lot of shows, yeah.
yeah, and from some amateur shows, a little bit of everything, but like I said, I admire what you do in the ring, in the cage, and you as a person. So I'm happy to have you, and I'm sure our guests are going to enjoy this interview.
Yeah, likewise, Juan. Like I said, I'm blessed to have you as a friend, and like you said, as a colleague. We work well together, and I don't know that you understand how important you are to this business. Starting your business, Cutman for Hire, you don't see a championship fight without Cutman for Hire supplies in the corner, and that probably has a lot to do with why they're in the championship fight. So thank
Thank you,
you for what you
no,
do.
thank you for that. We do it. We know how important the work in that corner is. So, we put everything into the gear. But let's begin. Where are you from, Al? Where are you from? Originally from San Diego?
I'm born and raised in San Diego, yes.
Okay, so take us back to how you got started in the sport of boxing, and I know you've done MMA as well, but I'm pretty sure your entrance into combat sports was through boxing.
Yeah, I got started back about 2001. I met a good friend of mine, Whit Hayden, who at that time was an up and coming matchmaker. And he was working for Top Rank, and we didn't have PBC. Golden Boy had just came on the scene. And so Whit was matchmaking for a lot of the promoters. And after meeting him in the amateurs and some of the pro shows, he started to send me out. At that time, I was training at the amateur level, training fighters at the amateur level, along with my son. And he started to send me to different shows to help out just as a regular cornerman. And then little by little, I started to make friends, and one of my biggest influences was Joe Chavez. Joe was like a mentor to me. At that time, he had all the high-profile fighters, with obviously Oscar De La Hoya being one of them. And Whit and myself, we used to love to, whenever we went to Vegas, we gambled on sports. And you would see Joe Chavez and Miguel Diaz always gambling on the horse races. So we would share our bets from football, basketball, baseball, and they would share their horse racing bets, and we just became really good friends. And with those friendships, became a really good friend with Joe Chavez, and had the opportunity to learn a lot of tricks of the trade from him.
So that brings me to the next question. So that's one of your first mentors, and was it Joe Chavez, or was this something that you kind of learned in the trenches, and then those tricks from Cutman like Joe Chavez just helped you improve your game?
Yeah, back at that time, I mean, you're talking about Miguel Diaz, Rafael Garcia, Joe Chavez, Chuck Bodak, Stitch was coming up. And all these guys, to be in the locker room in Las Vegas or Madison Square Garden, Danny Milano was coming up on the East Coast. Yes. And just being next to these guys, and obviously, like I'm sure you've done, you peek over the shoulder and see how they're wrapping hands. You're getting tips, And you know, not all the guys are forthcoming with trying to help you become a cutman. You know, you've got to kind of peek over people's shoulder to see what guys are doing. And to this day, I still find myself watching you because you rap one of the best hands in the business,
Thank you, man.
and watching you do your thing, and watching guys like Mike Basil, Mike Rodriguez. I mean, there's some good hand rappers out there. Stitch. And for me, that's what I enjoy doing. Not just working cuts, but I think if you can get your fighter out of there without any issues with his hands, that's 80% of the job, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point because those are their money makers, and
Absolutely.
and actually we just did we were just at a boxing event a few what was it, like a less than a month ago, and
Yes,
I was watching you rap, and man, my props, man, to you because you got one of the best hand raps as well. So,
I
um,
appreciate it.
and I noticed, when you were there working with your boxer, is that time, for you guys to kind of share that moment. Um, he knows he's in good hands. You're taking care of him, so it starts then. I mean, could that's where it starts. I mean, the fight doesn't start when that bell rings. That fine fight mentality starts in the dressing room. Is that correct or?
I, I would agree. Some people would say it starts in the gym.
Huh,
For me, um, knowing the trainer and knowing that the trainer has confidence in you means a lot. I would say even much more to than the fighter having confidence in you, because a lot of times you will find that the fighter looks at the trainer as just the chief in charge there in the corner, and he knows that the trainer's not going to just bring anyone
right.
in there. So
That
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's true. You're right. And I've noticed now that you bring that up, I do notice that when you work with the boxers, that they do look at their trainer as like you said, that they're not going to do them wrong. I mean, they want the best for them because they want them to get out of that fight in good health and with a W and in good health. So that's good. I never really thought about that, but that's a good point. That when and I think that's something that the trainer and the fighter got to have that connection then, because if
Absolutely.
something's a little shaky right there from the get-go, maybe if the boxer isn't trusting the trainer 100%, then we have issues. Then that's going to be
Absolutely.
a problem.
Yeah,
So
I think that there are some fighters, there are some trainers that I have worked with. Um, when you're just starting out, you're
mhm,
somewhat reluctant to speak in the corner, even though you feel like you have the knowledge to help out in the corner. I like to be asked, "Hey, like, are you okay?" Or are you asking me? Sometimes they'll look over at you and, "What do you see?" They want some
mhm,
advice, and it's a good feeling when you're with high profile trainers such as Robert Garcia or Buddy McGirt, and you mention something and they tell you, yeah, absolutely, he's right. You need to do this. You need to do that. And we just had that happen here in Giovanni
mhm.
Santillan's fight, where it's a good feeling when I'm working with Robert Garcia, because he'll look to you. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are part of that team. His father is normally in the corner with us,
Right.
and his father built him, built Fernando Vargas, and the amount of things that you can see that he sees in that corner. But when you bring something up, you're going, oh, you know what? They missed that. And, Robert will tell you, like, we can't see everything. So it helps out. But sometimes people want you to stay in your lane. So you
Yeah.
got to know who you're working with. It's
Yes.
important.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good tip. Know what that corner is expecting, because some of them will tell you, and I've had it happen where, like, you just worry about cuts and we got everything else. We don't need
Yeah.
coaching. I want my fighter to listen. So that's a good thing. And I mean, sharing that corner with, like you said, Robert Garcia, Buddy McGirt. I mean, that must be a good feeling for them to, number one, I mean, trusting you with their fighter, and also to get your input. That must mean a lot right there.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite trainers to work with is Bashir Abdullah. I mean, Bashir has been in the industry
Mhm.
for probably 40 years,
Yeah.
and he just came onto the pro scene about maybe 8, 10 years ago, and he's kicking in the doors now. He's got some soldiers that
Yes,
are
sir.
ready to go, and to hear him say, "Hey, your feedback is important in the corner. So open your mouth. If you see something, say something." That's
Yes.
a good feeling. This man has coached 20 years on the Olympic team, and for him to say, "Hey, like you're vital in this corner," it means a lot. It means
No,
a
no,
lot.
definitely, definitely. So take us back to you said it was the early 2000s. Is that when you started? You had your first pro. Do you remember who your first pro fighter was that you worked with?
Yeah, my first pro fighter that I worked with was actually here locally, and I'm sure you know him, Tiger Smalls.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, Tiger Smalls was still pro at the time, and Robert Garcia was working him. The Robert Garcia here from San Diego,
Yeah, yeah,
not the one
Robert.
from Oxnard.
Mhm.
And so I had the opportunity, and at that time I was just helping out. I wasn't a cut man because at that time Robert was doing everything, but he was handing them water bottles, and Robert was training my son at the time, so we had pretty good chemistry there in the gym. So he was like, "Yeah, you want to help me out in the corner?" And then from there, Whit was like, "Hey, I seen you working a pro corner. I know you could. I know you work tons of amateur corners. I'm going to send you to Houston, and you're going to work this corner. And then I'm going to send you over here. And then before you know it, I mean, the suitcase just stayed packed, ready to go. I was leaving every week.
Yes. No, no, no. And I've seen even up until recent years. I mean, I see you busy, busy. Turn on the TV, I see you working. So that's good, man. That's a blessing in that, a lot of people, you can tell a lot of people count on you being in that corner with them. I mean, it's a good feeling to know you're part of that team.
Yeah,
So
it's a blessing. It really is.
so you started in San Diego, you started with Tiger Smalls. During that time, was there any other promotions going on in San Diego? Was there any local boxing
Yeah,
or?
Bobby D was in and out. He was putting on shows back then at the El Cortez. I
Okay.
don't know if you remember. That's downtown. It's not
Mhm.
there anymore. And now there's a hotel across the street. But there used to be a big convention center there,
Oh, okay.
and he used to put on shows there. And it was the El Cortez Convention Center, and and then from there he started to move them over. They built the 4 Point Sheraton, and he started
Mm.
moving them over there.
Okay, so that was one of the local promoter, and yeah, he's been around.
Yes,
A Hall of Fame promoter. So shout out
absolutely.
to Bobby for all the work he's done in San Diego and just everywhere. We've seen him in Tijuana as well. Um, MMA. When do you get involved with MMA?
Man, Wick got me involved with MMA through Roy Engelbrecht. I became pretty good friends with Roy, and then Roy started doing the hybrid shows and
Yes.
the amateur MMA shows, and um, that that's a bit different. When I first started working MMA, normally you work a fighter, two fighters, three fighters in a show. You have a timeline that I got to get this guy wrapped by this time, this guy wrapped by this time. But once I started working the amateur shows with Roy, I reached out to you
Yeah.
because you were the MMA champion. You were always doing these MMA shows, and I think when we started doing the Del Mar shows and the
Costa
shows out
Mesa.
in Costa Mesa, um, I was able to learn the MMA side from you to see how you would get all your raps together. And I mean, it's like this big conveyor belt system of fighters coming through,
Exactly.
and there's a respect for that side of the business because I think on the MMA side, uh, you get some of your best work on that side. Now, mind you, these are 3 round fights. Obviously, you get the professionals, you got some 5 round fights,
Yeah.
so you don't have to um, you don't have to kind of keep that cut from bleeding too long. Where in boxing, you're looking at, 10-round fights and 12-round fights. And to me, that's hard to keep that under wraps for that long, because they're still banging away at it, that eye's getting steady, swollen. So it's rough. But on the MMA side, those cuts and that blood comes in abundance. I mean, it's coming from all, you're like, man, where's he bleeding now? Top of the head, elbow, this. I'm like, wow, so yeah, you learn a lot real quick.
Yeah, and that's a good point. For me, I started on the MMA side because boxing is hard to get into. I really didn't know a lot of people in boxing at the time. And MMA was my way into combat sports and the cut game. So you learn a lot, like you said. It's you get, maybe you have 12 fights, 10 fights, and you're wrapping all 10 of them. So you stay busy and you learn a lot. It's a good place to learn and perfect, your craft. I enjoy working with you, those shows. I know we talked about this in the past, just because it feels good when you're working with somebody, especially in those MMA shows, that they're taking care of business and you're taking care of business. It's
Absolutely.
like, it just feels good. Like, okay, I know he's got red corner, he's got blue corner. I don't got to worry about nothing over there. So it is a good, it's a good feeling to have a good partner.
Yeah, you have always been someone that I really enjoy working with, and I don't know if you remember that time 2-3 years ago. I had a championship fight in South Africa.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't go. Like it was too far away. And then I had some other fights lined up, and I'm like, you know what? They were like, if you can line me up with another good Cutman, you were the first guy I called.
Thank you.
Juan packed his bags and he was on his way to Johannesburg.
We were in
how was that trip, Juan?
East London. It looked nice online. East London looked beautiful. Kind of like when you book a hotel for Las Vegas and it looks really nice and you get there, it's the King George's and you're like, oh shoot, smells like like smoke and no, it wasn't that bad, but it was an experience, traveling all the way to South Africa, being in a country where now I kind of have respect for when we tell people like, just go to TJ. It's fine, you'll be fine. When we tell our güerito, our friends, or and things like that, like just go, you'll be fine. Now I know how they feel, because in South Africa, I think it's three things. You're either white, like mixed, or you're black. I think that's how it is. So I think I was categorized as white when I was up there. So there's not too many, especially Latinos or Mexican. I think it was me and me and the coach were the only raza up there. We were like, hey, it was a fun trip, dude. Don't get me wrong. It was an adventure. We will never forget.
That's awesome.
The fight didn't happen. We didn't, we ended up not fighting. They weren't happy about it.
So you flew halfway around the world for nothing.
For nothing. I was like, man, am I going to get paid? But sure enough, they took care of me and stuff. They were good people. But no, it was an adventure. But that's the type of adventures that, being in the fight game, you get to travel to places you've never imagined. I mean, share with us some of the places you've been, Al. I know you've been around, the US, I mean, little towns, big towns.
Yeah, I've been blessed. Canada, Mexico, the US, across the pond. It's been a blessing. It really has been. But to speak on those times where you fly somewhere and then the fight doesn't happen during COVID, we had that happen. We flew to New York. The guys got tested, and our opponent tested for COVID. So they said, "Don't even go to the hotel. We're going to put you in a staging room, and we're going to send you back to the airport, and you're going to fly back out." Like, oh my goodness.
So, they didn't even want to. They're like, "You're going back." Wow.
No. No,
Yeah.
no,
No, and that's one thing with COVID just in general, things happen. With us,
absolutely.
our fighter got sick, and and it just didn't happen. But it's kind of hard to explain that to people that are not in the fight game. They don't really. I think it's hard for them to understand that. But those are
Absolutely.
it's part of the sport. Part of the fight game. So you traveled. You said the UK, everywhere. You've been. What are some of the your favorite things besides the actual fight about what? Because I know traveling can be tough. Being out there and what are some of the fun things that you enjoy when you travel?
You know, it's the camaraderie that you build with the trainer and the fighters. A lot of times they bring their families, and uh, you know, it's just a it's just a good experience. As you know, you really don't get a lot of sightseeing. You
No.
know, you leave the hotel. I mean, you leave the airport, and you're put in a van and you go to the hotel, and then there's licensing and press conferences and
Weigh-ins.
weigh-ins, and then it's time to go to work and then back to the airport. Every now and then for the bigger fights, you will get sent out a little earlier, so you do have
Yeah.
maybe a day free
Mm.
while they're doing media and stuff like that to see. But yeah, I'm so glad I got into becoming, a cut man, but just because I've been able to see um, damn near every state in the United States, working fights from Minnesota to Rhode Island to Wyoming. I mean, some of the states you're going, you guys boxed up here,
Right.
but, and then the fraternity that you join, being around guys like you, it's great. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's a small world. I mean, the boxing, MMA. I mean, we see a lot. We see each other at a lot of events, and it is like you said. It becomes like a family. Something something we get to know each other. When somebody, especially during COVID, some people got sick, some people passed away. So it really hits hard because those are people that we've shared, times with and stuff. So
Absolutely.
that's true. I wanted to touch up on a little bit on an event that happened. I mean, it was all over. I know San Diego probably made nationwide news. The event happened back in 2010, and I know we talked a little bit about it. So I want you to tell us a little bit and a little bit about this event. Um, it had to do with Hector Gill and Mark
Oh,
Diaz.
yes. Yes.
It was a tragic event. A lot of people got affected by it, but it comes to show that it's a tough business. Whether it be on a coaching side, as a cut man. We touched a little bit on this, but take us back to 2010. I know you were in that you were around in that time, so take us back out to that.
Yeah. Again, it was a absolute tragedy. So at that time, I was working with Mark Diaz. Mark Diaz was a close personal friend of mine. He had helped me in my son's amateur corner, uh, many tournaments, and we knew each other very well. His family knew my family knew his family, and he started to bring on a lot of fighters. And as much as we had talked about working together, we never really got an opportunity to. But then once he started to get a lot of fighters, he called me and was like, you know what, Al, yeah, I'm going to use you. And well, shortly before us starting to work together, um, there was another trainer by the name of Hector Gill. I'm sure you've heard of Madomero Paez, Luisito Espinosa. He had built a lot of world champions from Mexicali, and he had pretty much cashed out of his professional training career and sold everything he had there in Mexicali and wanted to move here to San Diego to retire. And his children had moved over here, so he wanted to be closer to his kids. Well, he buys a house in Vista, and he moves into a house that is a block away from a boxing gym. he says after moving in, he takes a walk around the block, and then he hears like the Pied Piper. He hears the sound of a speed bag,
Yes.
and he starts walking towards that sound, and he comes across this gym, and I believe it was called the Pacific Coast Training Center, and that was the gym that Mark was working out of. And Mark recognized him as he peeked in.
Mm.
He knew exactly who he was just from seeing him on TV for a lot of years, and Mark had invited him in, and Hector had seen a bunch of children in there working out, and Mark had asked him, "Hey, like I could really use a trainer like you to come in here and help me," and Hector said, "Look, I moved to San Diego to get away from boxing."
Yeah.
And he goes, "But you know what? The sound of the speed bag is just something about the smell of this gym. Uh, I'm going to come in here, but I just want to work with the kids. I don't want no, you know, issues with the professionals because I've been in that business for a lot of years." So he started working with the little kids, and he started building relationships in the gym. A lot of the professional fighters were very impressed with what they were seeing him do with the Mets.
Yeah.
So here and there, a professional would ask him to work the mitts, and they really liked it. Well, for whatever reason, Mark was dismissed from the gym, and I guess things got a little ugly where there was a restraining order. He wasn't
Mm.
allowed to be around the gym, and they asked Hector if he could come in as a head trainer, and he said, "Yeah, but I don't want no issues with anyone. I want to come in here. I'll help out." Well, there was a fighter, upper echelon fighter named Danny Perez. I'm sure you know him from
Mhm.
San Diego, and Danny was getting ready to fight Irizlandi Lara, a Cuban Olympian, and
Yeah.
Irizlandi Lara was making noise at that time. It was a Showtime main event for some big money. And so Hector had agreed to help him with that fight. And Danny brought me into the gym. I met Hector, and we were signed to work that fight. A week prior to that fight, one of another one of the professional fighters in that gym, Ricky Gutierrez, was fighting here locally in San Diego, and Hector asked me if I could help him in that fight. So I did. And as I was wrapping Ricky in the locker room, this was at the 4 Point Sheraton.
Uh-huh.
I remember it was time to glove Ricky up. I wrapped him up, gloved him, but we couldn't find Hector to work the mitts. And so I left the locker room and I started to walk out towards the crowd, and I could see Hector hunched down in the hallway. And I go, "Hector, what are you doing? Like, we need you to start mitting Ricky up." And he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you in on something. Um, Mark has been threatening me. He's been threatening to kill me." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah." Um, and they said he was supposed to be at this fight, man. So I'm just kind of nervous. I was looking for him. And me knowing Mark, I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound like Mark. I think you're going to be okay." And all right, so we go out there. Uh, Ricky fights, and then we come back into the locker room, and you could tell that Hector is he's really worried about walking out into the parking lot,
Yeah.
because he was saying, "I thought I seen Mark in the crowd." And um, so he ended up leaving, and the following week, that fight was like on a Friday night. We ended up leaving like on Monday to go to Las Vegas. He's fighting at the Hard Rock Hotel on Showtime. And as we're at the airport, he starts sharing with me how scared he is. He's saying that he's getting all these death threats from Mark via uh, voicemail. So we get to the Hard Rock Hotel, and I'm in the room with his two sons and Hector, and his two sons say, "Hey, Dad, like, can you let Al listen to some of the voicemails?" And he listened to the voicemails, and sure enough, it's Mark. And he's going, "Wow!" Like, I had never seen that side of
Yeah.
Mark. And he's saying that, "You took my fighters, and now you're gonna pay. I'm gonna kill you." He's going, "Oh my goodness!" Right? So again, I'm still thinking like, I know Mark. Like I've never seen that side of him. Um, he's like, "Oh, well, I've already contacted the sheriff and let them know. I guess they got a restraining order, I think, for Mark." And so Danny fights at Showtime, um, and we end up staying there Sunday, and then we come back Monday. And after the fight, uh, I guess Mark leaves him a couple more voicemails saying that when he gets back home, he's dead. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." He was like, "Yeah, I'm going to tell the sheriff, let him know that he's still calling me." And so Tuesday night, Hector goes into the gym, and they're working mitts in the ring. Him and another trainer that I'm sure you know, Pedro, Peter Moreno. And so all of a sudden, shots rang out, and Hector takes one in the heart, and that bullet goes through Hector and lodges into Peter's shoulder. So Peter goes down, and then Ricky gets shot in the leg, pretty bad. I mean, they were when
Yeah.
they didn't know if they were going to have to amputate his leg. They were talking all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And turns out that I get a call that night from one of the fighters from the gym, and they're saying, "Al, Mark shot up the gym. Mark shot up the gym." And I'm like, how do you know it was Mark? Like, did they catch him?" And they were like, "No, like it has to be Mark." You know, I guess Hector had been telling a lot of people in the gym that Mark had been threatening him. So I guess people were just speculating that it was Mark.
Mm.
I was away at business and traveling outside of the city. And when I came back, there were two homicide detectives. I came back the next morning at about 7:30 in the morning, and there were two homicide detectives in my office waiting for me. And they were like, "You're going to have to come down to the station." And I was like, "Well, wait, like why me? Like I
Yeah,
have
man.
nothing to do with this." And they were like, "No, we found out through Hector's sons that you heard the voicemails of Mark Diaz, and we need you to come down to the station." And I was like, "Look, I don't want to get involved in this." And they were like, "You're going to come with us, or you're going to get uh, arrested for obstruction of justice." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I've never been in the principal's office, let alone
Yeah.
arrested."
Wow.
So, man, I grabbed my bag and off to the homicide department I went, and got interviewed. And man, six months later, we're in a murder trial. So
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty
That's
catastrophic.
and like you said, I mean, that's something. I mean, you didn't see that side of Mark. I mean, you would have never thought that it would get to that point
You know,
where he would, go out and do that.
and the amount of evidence that they had found that they came up with in that trial, I was like, "Wow, you guys had all this evidence. Why did you need me? You didn't need
Mhm.
me." And they were like, "No, and they did. They kept it very generic when they interviewed me.
Yeah.
And I asked them, please don't put me out there, like, because I
Yeah.
explained how my family is part of his family, and
Mhm.
um, it was a tough situation. It was a tough situation to be in.
Wow, man, that's. I remember hearing about it. And it was. I mean, it made a lot of news in San Diego. Like I said, I think probably throughout Southern California because I'm sure they were all. I mean, uh, well known. Well known trainers and stuff. But it's a part of the game. Sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know. It's a serious. If he felt that way about it, oh, those are my fighters. I mean, it was, he took it really, really serious. And, even though, it wasn't the way he may have thought it happened, that was what was in his mind, that his fighters got stolen or whatever the issue may have been. But that's a tough one, man, to be in. That's a tough
It,
situation.
it really is, and I think as Cutman, a lot of times you'll be maybe it worked a fighter 2 or 3 times, and then before you know it, you see him on TV or you find out that he's fighting, and you might call him and they say, hey, like we're going with Juan Ramirez this time because my trainer knows Juan really good, and I mean it happens. It
Yeah.
happens. So normally there's phone calls exchanged and like, hey Juan, like good luck. I heard they're going with you, or whatever. But it's just part of the business. It is
Mhm.
part of the business.
And
So,
you know what? I'm glad you bringing that up because it does happen, and a lot of times you get, I mean, we're talking about just recently how you're at an event and they're like, hey, we need a cut man, we need somebody to help us out. You may want, you may want to just be there to help them out, like, oh man, they don't got nobody to wrap them up or help them out. I'll do it, but people don't know, I mean, we don't know the whole story. Maybe they got in a fight with their with their other cut man, and sometimes you could be in a bind with
right.
those situations. um but yeah, you're right. I mean, just a simple call, courtesy call. Hey,
Yes.
you know what, is it cool, if if it's not, then I'll step away from it. But a little courtesy call goes a long ways, and
It's funny you mentioned that too. Us being two veterans at that last show that
mhm,
we worked. Uh, I think you remember the inspector coming in, going out. We have someone over there that needs a cut man.
yeah,
Like, can you help him? And normally, like years back, like absolutely. You kind of took that as a feather in your cap.
yeah,
Absolutely, that's great. But now you're like, oh, well, hey Juan, you want this extra
yeah,
work, buddy? And you were like, no, Al, you can miss me with that too, buddy. I
yeah.
like, it's not, back in the day, Juan, I think we were knocking on the doors to try and get that work,
Want to do that work? Yep.
But now, we vamos a lo que vamos, like we're going to go work with what we're going to work with, and trying to get back on the freeway, because a lot of those fights are in Los Angeles,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you
And I think
know,
with
but
us, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's what you get to that point. And then when we are there with other, we're there with our boxers. We're there to dedicate our time to them because they took the time to call you, hey, I need you on this date, and they book you and this and that. So sometimes I find it uh, you do get in that bind, but the main thing is the main thing, and that's who brought you to the event. That's the way I look at it. If it's
absolutely,
after the fight, and if they're okay, if it does happen, and this is a tip for other cut men out there, if it does happen, run it by the coach or the manager that brought you. If they're okay with it, and then fine. But don't go up there picking up all kinds of work and stuff, and then like they say in Spanish, quedas mal.
yeah,
With
right,
everybody,
right.
you end up doing a crappy job for everybody because you're just everywhere. You're everywhere, but with the
Where you
main
need to
guys,
be,
yeah, where you need to
right,
be. So
right.
it's just
And that's one
additional
thing, Juan.
stress.
I always ask. I always
Yes.
ask. If I go there with a fighter, I always ask the fighter, "Do you mind if I go
Mhm.
work over here? Do you mind if I go work over there?" Most of the trainers that I work with, they know that that's going to come up, so they're prepared for it. But um, you know, uh, like you said, I think we try to stay with who we
Yeah.
went to the dance with and finish the dance with them. But you know as well as I do, Juan, you and I are cut from the same cloth. We will never leave a fighter by himself. They
No.
don't have anyone to help them and they need help. Whether it be, I need some gauze, a lot of times
Oh
they'll
yeah.
come, I need tape. And the inspectors know to come to us because we know we're always trying to help people, right?
Yes.
So I never try to,
Yeah.
charge anyone. Look here, because a lot of those fighters,
Exactly.
they're coming from Mexico. They're here to make a check,
Mhm.
and you're just trying to help them out.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point. I feel the same way. I mean, if they need this or that, I mean, that's fine, man. We, to help them out. No, 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 no cuesta nada. I mean, that
No,
you just helping out. But yeah,
absolutely.
those are, and like you mentioned with the inspectors, I think because they've seen us around so
Yes,
much and they see us
right,
working events. Sometimes we're the cut man for the whole show, so they just know who
right.
to go to and stuff. But
And you know what? That is just, it's a good feeling knowing, like they were shooting that Showtime series Ray Donovan, and Mark Royer, the head of the California State Athletic Commission, had given Paramount, uh, myself and Mike Rodriguez
Mhm.
from War Tape, our names so that we could work the cuts. So I got to
Mm.
work Victor Ortiz on that Showtime show,
Oh,
Ray Donovan, and that's cool. That's just them saying, "Hey, like we
I
know who
know.
you are, and we trust you in these situations." Al, would you mind doing this? Absolutely. Like
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you
it's
just
kind of
build
like
that.
being absolutely. It's like being on this show. It's a benefit of working with people like you.
Yeah, no, no, no. Thank you. No, and that's one thing. When you see people like you guys on that show, or Stitch on Creed, it's just good, man. To
Yeah,
have somebody represent the profession. I mean,
absolutely,
it makes you proud. You're like, yeah, you know what? I'm part of that group. Of
absolutely.
Cutman, and like I was talking to uh, Carol, the cut woman, last week on the last interview, and I go, you know what? I think we're a little different. Cut man, cut woman, we're a little bit different. Not weird, but we're a little bit different. I mean, all the stuff that we see that we go through, with we're a little bit of everything. We're there to take care of them, kind of medically, take care of those wounds, emotionally at times, when there's a loss, when there's a, when they're really down, where you're there still with them. So I think we're cut, like you said, out of a different, different cloth. It's interesting. You know
And I'll
what?
tell you, I love seeing the women in those corners. I love seeing the women trainers, just paving their way into the business. You go girls. That's awesome.
That's
Hats off
right.
to you.
It's not an easy, thing to crack in,
No, no,
into this business,
no.
and to see them much respect. And there's a few. So I, much respect. I know UFC has cut woman. We got, boxing is getting more cut women. So yeah, like you said, much respect for, for them doing their
Absolutely.
thing and doing a great job. What do you got planned for 2022? What's, we're what, 4 or 5 months in, 4 months into the.
Man, I've got some fighters that are getting ready to break through. Giovanni Santillan,
Yes.
29-year-old welterweight, signed with Top Rank, and is making some noise in the welterweight
Mhm.
division. Big shot, Stephen Shaw from St. Louis. Um, he's one of Bashir Abdullah's fighters, and he's 15-0, and he's making some noise in the heavyweight division. And then you've got all these up and comers that I work with Bashir. He's just got nothing but monsters out there.
Yeah.
Austin Brooks, Mario Ramos, Rashad. I mean, Raquel Miller. Got D Moran that's coming in to the pros. I mean, it is just he's got Jacob. I mean, he's got a lot of fighters, and uh, for me, just being associated with his team, it's enough. It's enough work, and then you
That's
get all the
enough.
little calls on the side.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. A lot of big things. God willing, a lot of big things happen in
A
2022.
lot of talent coming up. That's good.
Absolutely,
That's good.
absolutely.
How do you keep how can I say it, with all the work that's coming, full-time job, family, how do you keep it together? Because I know it can be tough at times.
Having a fabulous wife has a lot to do with it. My wife Sophia, she holds down the house and allows me to go out. We have one stipulation: she gets half of whatever I make, and she started that very early in my career. So she's a hell of a negotiator. But she's even a better mother and a better wife, and she holds it down. Like that's you see a lot of people in the business. They're single, you
Yes.
know, and they're able to do all that traveling. So I'll be honest with you, when COVID started, I have elderly parents, and I try to do my best to be there for them.
Yeah.
And then I have a 13, soon to be 14-year-old son that's still playing football. So I coach his team, and it's very important for me. Number one, to be a good father and a good husband before being a good cut man. So uh, because my family came first before this business. So they own the biggest piece of the pie, and then work, and then being a cut man. So,
and I want to say congratulations because you got some champions at home. You know,
yes, thank you.
you built some champions, and
Thank you.
that's a big accomplishment. You know, to
Absolutely.
do that as a father, you know, and as a, so props to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any shout outs you want to give?
I just shout outs to my wife and my three kids. My oldest son, Albert Gamez, is Albert Gamez Jr. He just became a doctor of physical therapy. He's been grinding his whole life. Was a hell of an amateur boxer, and then he became a track star and went to run track in college. And then my daughter has been her name is Untitled Gamez, and she has been a competitive cheerleader all of her life, and she is graduated from San Diego State and now finishing up her MBA at San Diego State in sports marketing. So any of you big promotional companies looking for someone good to help in your marketing department, hit me up. I got a good person for you. She's a humongous boxing fan. Travels across the country to see fights with a friend or by herself. She loves the game. And then my little buddy Angel, who's a hell of a football player, just a great kid. Just very excited for the future. My wife, she holds it down. Sophia is amazing. I don't always have the opportunity to bring her with me because a lot of times she'll only go if she knows the fighter really well. Like you'll always catch her at the Giovanni Santillan's fight because Giovanni's been, part of our family since he was like 9 years old. Yeah, now with Bashir, she knows Bashir a lot, so she's gonna start jumping in the bag with me, and I love to have her with me. It's a lot of fun. Makes it better.
Good. No, that's great. Well, as you know, we have a segment here on Los Championship Rounds. It's called 12 rounds in 60 seconds. That's where I shoot out 12 questions. Just let us know what comes to mind.
Okay.
All right, here we go. You ready? Listo?
Ready.
All right, man. Your favorite fight movie?
Rocky 3.
If you could eat 3 tacos, what flavors would they be?
I would say carne asada, adobada, and carnitas.
Your dream car?
Porsche 911 GT3.
MMA or boxing?
Boxing. But I love MMA. Shout out to all my MMA folks, but yeah, I'm a boxing guy.
Guilty pleasure?
Chocolate.
Your go-to movie, that one that never gets old?
To watch Scarface all day long.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs.
Arena you would like to corner in?
Oof, man, I've pretty much done all the big ones. I would say Madison Square Garden. I've done it tons of times, and I don't know. It's just all the people that have been in that ring, in that arena.
Special. Your favorite artist or music genre?
Old school.
Your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Best walkout song?
Oh, it's got to be El Gallo de Oro when I walk out with Gio. That kind of make the hair stand on your back of your neck.
If you could be in any corner of any fighter, past or present, who would it be?
I would say Julio Cesar Chavez, Roberto Duran, Oscar De La Hoya.
Man, that's good stuff right there. That was 12 rounds in 60 seconds with Cutman Al Gamez. Al, where can people find you on social media?
I'm only on Instagram, and that's Al Gamez, the Cutman, or Cutman Al Gamez. Yes. I don't do a lot of social media. I just did my Instagram primarily just for boxing. But now the family is just becoming successful. So you can't help but post your wife and the kids, so it has turned into everything else, but it's primarily for boxing.
It's good. It's good to show people, the other side, a little bit of the other side of what you do besides being a cut man and being in the corners. Um, any last things you would like to share before we end the interview?
Juan, I would just like to congratulate you on all of your success. I remember when you first came out with your first corner jacket and Cutman for Hire, and I was scratching my head going, so how is that going to work? People are going to, you had the 1-800 number on the bottom, like call
Yeah.
me. And I was like, man. And then little by little, I started to see you more and more and more. And then I started calling you for supplies. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I've got everything right here in my hometown. And now, you've teamed up with Stitch. And I mean, that is just,
Oh,
that's a
thank
hell of a
you.
team. And hats off. I think I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, and everyone says the same thing about who
Mhm.
you are as a person. You're just an awesome person. And it's hard to be a better Cutman than you are a person. But yeah, you're giving it a run for your money. So hats off to you. Congratulations. And it's blessed to have you it's a blessing to have you as a friend.
No, thank you all for those kind words. And I thought the same thing when with the brand itself, Cutman for Hire. I don't know about that, but I thank God that that it created a niche, and that we're able to provide supplies to every from the amateurs to the championship fights. And I'm just it's un orgullo, just to be able to do that, and to a little business out of Chula Vista, California, man, that it's
That's
worldwide.
awesome.
So I do it for us, for the cut man, worldwide, man. We do it so that we can have the best supplies to help those fighters, and in that battle. So now, thank you. It's when you do things with passion, like what you do with the fighters, like we were talking a few weeks ago, you miss holidays, you miss anniversaries, you miss a lot of special events, but
Yeah.
you know what, it's what we love. This is what we love. And
Absolutely.
so it's a great feeling, and it's all worth it, man. But I just want to say thank you, Al. Like you mentioned, I also want to say thank you for being a good friend. Every time I see you at an event, I'm happy to see you. I look at your work, and I admire what you do out there. The
Thank you.
bond, the way you talk to people, just bien amigable, very friendly, easygoing, and that energy is great to be around. So thank you
Thank you.
for being you, and for all you do for all the fighters, man, in San Diego and worldwide. I mean, you've gone everywhere, brother. So, let
Thank
God
you.
continue to bless you in your
Yes.
career,
And
with your
you as well.
family. Thank you, brother. And we'll see you at the next one.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Well, thank you. And
Thanks, Lon.
I just want to say, tune in next Thursday for our next interview. And Cutman out. Thank you for being on Los Championship Rounds. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. God bless you.
My pleasure. My pleasure, brother. Love you.
Love you too, bro. Bye bye.